I have before me Anne Laure Jackson, sensory specialist, occupational therapist. Hello, Anne.
Good to see you.
Last week, let's just go straight to this. Last week, we were talking about all sorts of things in regarding particularly to me moving house. You've got your centre opening on Jersey. We'll touch on that again at the end. But we were looking at just sort of I'll say common, not frequent, but common stresses. So moving house is a big one, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's right up there with it. You can't have, that there's not many things that change as much as your home from the sensory environment. And also because it is that place of safety and security. And that's where we, for parents, will certainly see the exhibition of behaviours, because that's actually where the children feel safe when they come home from school or nursery or clubs or organisations, when they've been out and they've held it together. Home is that safe space to return to, and they are themselves. And then when the actual home changes, that security, that sensory security, as well as emotion, it just, everything changes. So it's a huge thing.
But I also thought about not just somebody who struggles with sensory health, overload or underload, whatever, but the people who are in the house who perhaps might normally be ordinarily very, very good in terms of their sensory health. They're sort of level-headed and, they haven't got extremes, but now they're tired. So the ability to process and help somebody who was already struggling is now struggling more, coupled against the fact that you're now struggling in ways that you wouldn't normally perhaps ever do. Some people might move home once every 30 years. And you've got this cacophony of strains and stresses in this boiling pressure pot. It's just madness, isn't it?
It is madness. And it's not surprising that we really need to learn how to take care of ourselves, be gentle with others, just give ourselves an awful lot of grace, because it is tough. It's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah. There were a few times when I did it. I have to say sorry to my wife and my kids, because it was so much going on that I was not my usual self. And I usually am, sensory health, I'm okay generally. But there were times because it was stressful and it was, there's lots of anxious stuff going on. And you're worried about this and you're trying not to damage the van and you've got to get back on time. And there's a million and one thing going on top of everything else. I did have to say sorry a few times, but people were showing grace, because it's like, don't worry about it. Let's just get on with this, because some ways I was kind of pushing people, but actually that's what also got us through at the same time. So it's one of those.
It is. Yeah. It is. Yeah. You're put in a position where you have to do things differently and extra to what your comfort zone is and how everyone is comfortable with you being as dad and husband, and then the others have to completely change what they do and how they do it and have to relate to you differently. It changes so many things. It does. It's hard.
But I was thinking about how do we minimize it, and one of the things that we've got, because we've moved more times than is probably healthy in a lifetime, but we always try and front load. We try and do as much as we can before the day to make it as easy as possible. Even as simple as we buy an industrial, it's like cling film, but it's a sort of industrial pallet wrap. We put that around things to hold things together, so it's easier to pick stuff up, because by the end of the day, now your fingers, you're dropping everything because they're smooth from being used so much, and you can't moisturize enough. So there are things that we try and do just to make it easier. It's like tactile touch. We were dropping things everywhere. We're not clumsy. Now our fingers are just smooth.
But I was just thinking what you said there about the preparation, the front loading, because I'm working on the 6 weeks to a sensory healthy church. It's a program that's coming out at the end of June, and it's so much about the front loading, the preparation of people before they even come to your church, whether it's a new church and they're on holiday, or whether it's an existing church. How many things can we let people know about what's going to happen before they even come through across the threshold to reduce those stress levels? It's the same way, okay, we've got to do this when we're moving, we've got to organise this and this and this. You get all of that stuff organised beforehand. So although it's incredibly hard to actually do the stuff, there's definitely arousal levels are lower than if you had no idea what was going to happen. You hadn't organised your cardboard boxes, you hadn't organised time off work. It's all of that preparation beforehand. And we need to do that if we are neurotypical, if we need to do that under best practice for just being human. But boy, we need just to up it a bit for almost everything that happens for those with sensory differences.
I have a thought on that one, but what's neurotypical? What does that mean?
Well, it's because we've termed the phrase, it's become more common to use the term neurodiverse. So because you've got neurodiversity, it has to be diverse from something. So you have to have typical people, because nobody wants to use the word normal because people aren't abnormal, and so it's all the whole language thing means that those of us who, especially from well, certainly from my side of it, the processing things, there is a typical in my courses and my systems and stuff. I explain that we're a big ball. And all the different ways that we process information, we're kind of like spherical with all the different senses that come in and the different ways that we process it. And some people can like live on the extremes. Their balls are huge, so they're really overreactive to certain things and very explosive, very controlling. And others are that laid back that you can't get them up and doing anything, and they're falling all over the place. So there are people who kind of like live on the extremes, and that's more the neurodivergent type of divergency, whereas the rest of us who are a little bit more smaller in our expressions and more quick in our processing and more able to regulate better, who are typically more coordinated, we just live in a much smaller ball. So that's how we define. Well, everybody will have their own definition, but that's a general definition of neurotypical, much easier, smaller ball of living, and the neurodiverse person has more extremities, depending on which facet of character and life that you're dealing with. But it's living life more on the extremes is how I would interpret it.
I want to come back to the church thing, but that made me think of tire pressure. If you've got your tire on your car and you overinflate it, it becomes very hard, and it's not a very pleasant ride because now you're reacting to every single bump on the road. If it's too low, now the car's sort of washy and it's not really reacting as it should. So a bit like a tire pressure, there's actually a good range of tire pressure. There's a bad overpressure and a bad underpressure. Is that similar-ish?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because again, as you were talking, it just made me think of that actually a golf ball might not be quite as, which is like your tire pressure. You know, a golf ball for someone who has no expression or very, very little expression, their life is that small, and it's just that small in everything that they do, in everything that they think, in every way that they are. It's just tiny. It is them, and that is utterly, to be valued and honored. But actually, if there was a little bit more give, then it's like that tire pressure. A little bit more give. If the ball was a little bit bigger, then life would be easier. There's a bit more give in the ball. Yeah. Beach, the massive beach balls are just a wee bit too big. Golf balls are just a bit too middle. It's the Goldilocks principle. It's the Goldilocks principle. We just want things to be just right, and definitely easier to live when we're in the middle ground, when the tire pressure is just right.
Right, so I wanted to come back on the church thing because we used to run an all-age service. It was in a very, very big, I'll say it this way, it was quite a foreboding building. It was like a cathedral, not that big, but it was scaled to look like it. It was quite scary to walk up to it. There were two doors, one of which was never used that people thought they should. There was another one that was used that people thought they probably shouldn't. And they were closed, and they had to be closed because of the heating system, especially in the winter. So you've got this closed off building as people are arriving. And one of the things we did was we had a massive A-frame, like a big board outside. And we had a big thing saying, come in here. And we had the same graphics on that we did on the website, that we had on flyers that went out to schools. So when they came, there were visual clues of, yes, we've seen this. This is the right thing. The flyer looks like the A-board, and a big arrow saying in here. We didn't have people outside in the cold because it was really cold, but it was a way of saying, come in here, you're very welcome. And as soon as people went to open the door, we had people there to greet them. But it was a way of trying to reduce some of that sensory fear, can I put it that way, of where are we supposed to go? We know we're supposed to come in here because it's infant baptism, so it was a big part of what we did. So, where do we go? Are we supposed to be in here? Are we allowed in here? And you can see people quite anxious and quite stressed. The A-board, it was a simple thing, and it just helped reduce that strain of, can I be here? Should we be here? Are we allowed in here? If I open the door, am I going to make a fool of myself? All that stuff. So it was quite a simple thing, hopefully, to reduce a load.
Yeah, and that's the visual. That was a clear visual thing. You didn't even have anything else. There was no swinging. They didn't have to hop up to the gate and like, all the other things that I would like. How to get children out of their car and into church. That is something in and of itself, and all the little things that we do to use the proprioceptive vestibular system to get them actually into the church. But that was a really simple and beautiful visual strategy for that recognition. Yes, I know that. Yes, I can relax. My arousal levels can calm down, at least for that bit. There are lots of other unknowns, and that's, they'd have to cope with all of that, but it is lovely. Use that visual system to reduce whatever you can.
Well, it's that front loading again, though, isn't it? It's about doing what you can before the thing, in order that when that thing happens, it's as small as possible. So it's not that big, huge mountain. It's just another step and a little step and a little step. You don't climb from the bottom to top of the mountain. You put one foot in front of the other.
Yeah. You just make me think of all the things I actually need to do to front load. Is
that good or bad?
Yeah, you know the thing that you ought to do, and then it's just the practicality of thinking, oh, crumbs, actually, I haven't done that there, and I need to do this. And I just think as we've just established or just set up the new webpage for the church, and thinking, oh, I actually need to get a video in there to explain to people exactly what we'll do when they come in to learn about how to be a sensory healthy church. So, yeah.
But it is that, isn't it? If we take some of the burdens off people, now they're going to react better because they haven't got to react in such an extreme way, which means that they can be happier in whatever it is, whether it's, a sensory healthy church, whether it's coming to a church service, whether it's walking into a restaurant for the first time. And, I don't go into restaurants very often, but I get quite stressed thinking, well, do we wait at the table or do we go up to the counter? Because it's not always that clear. And it can start to mar that experience of what should be a good, different sensory experience. It can become quite a nerve-wracking one.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because my mum and dad used to take me out to restaurants, which is really lovely, but they were always exactly the same. I knew exactly what to do, and you stayed at the table and you asked for the bill. You sat down, people came up and asked you what you wanted. So, but now there are so many different types of eating places that I literally have to ask because I don't know. I don't know what the norm is in this environment. Is like, do I go up and pay? Or do I go up and order and then pay? Or do I go up and then do I pay afterwards? It's like all of the normality that I knew or that I thought I knew, that I was really comfortable in certain environments. And then things change. This is like, oh, right, okay. It's not always taken as granted that you just go and you take a seat and someone's already automatically going to come up and take your order and bring your bill to you and things like that.
So restaurants and cafes take note, make it obvious and easy. Help people and don't make them feel like idiots when they sit down when they're not supposed to because you've changed the rules. Or stand here. Oh, you don't need to stand there today. Oh, thanks. Now I feel like a fool. Excellent. Right. Last week we touched on something which I said I'd write down and come back to you about, which is this: being in prison versus being a prisoner in regards to sensory health. So how might that look and how might we understand that better?
Yeah. It is a hard place, and I have heard that numerous times of folks feeling just in. Okay, let's explore the two. Circumstances can be pretty horrible. They could be pretty horrific with circumstances that are external, and that is like those external things have put you in a prison. You literally you can't break out those walls. You've got behaviors that are happening, and that it's just because of their diagnosis, because of their experiences, they are reacting, they're not happy, they are the individuals around you. And obviously I'm talking about people being the circumstances, because that is my world within sensory processing. So it's the other people that can make you feel like a prisoner, because that's what I hear from parents. That's what I hear from from those that I'm working with. And it's the sense of actually that is being in the prison, rather, because you are in that location. You can also be a prisoner in that because your mindset is just so devastated by the experiences that you can't rise above it. So you are feeling just utterly gutted and wasted and depressed and hopeless and exhausted and tearful, and you don't know the way out. There is no way out, and you are just in this awful place. So you are a prisoner within the prison. And they're the families, they're the people that I really want to reach out to, because we need to release that sense of feeling a prisoner within the circumstances. And it takes time and wisdom to know what is it, how can we free people up within the circumstances that actually they probably can't change too much. We can do what we can, we can educate, and we will put as many supports. We can change things phenomenally, but there are times also that we can't. People are just people. It doesn't mean to say that we don't stop trying, but so it's just within the circumstances that people find themselves, that there can be a joy, there can be a freedom, there can be a release of feeling the burden and feeling that intensity of just being a prisoner.
Have you ever read the book Killing Time by a chap called Noel Fellowes?
No.
So this is a guy who was arrested and charged, convicted for a murder. He always stated his innocence. At the end of the book, you discover, yes, he actually was innocent. So he went to prison and went through the entire system as an innocent guy. But one of the things that changed for him is prison. His book is called Killing Time because he was killing time in prison.
Mhm.
Is he was really angry and very bitter. You would be if you didn't do something and you're convicted of a murder. Your life, you aren't going to be in a good place. And he really wasn't. But in prison, one of the things that changed over time was he started to simply embrace where he was at, rather than saying, I shouldn't be here, I'm innocent, which, yes, he should have been saying, he was fighting that. But he also thought, but I'm in prison, I can't do anything about the four walls, but I can do something about my heart and attitude within the prison system. And he started to get integrated in some of the things that he could do. He didn't want to do those things, I guess, because, well, now I look guilty. If I don't engage in anything, I look innocent. But actually, in engaging in stuff, it actually improved his life, in spite of the terrible stuff of him actually being in prison. He later went on to find faith, and his life got quite radically turned for good. But I just thought about that prison versus being a prisoner, because he was in prison for the wrong reasons, nothing to do with him. He didn't do anything. He was completely innocent. He was just grabbed, as you'll do, to prosecute. But when he was in prison, he actually thought, eventually, okay, I'm here, so I need to make the most of where I am now. I can't do anything about the four walls. I'll fight that as I can. But actually, what can I do in prison for myself?
That is it exactly. That is perfect. And that's a hard journey. Again, nobody else can really make that shift for you. It has to be something that you come to that realization of the self, because you are the one that will free yourself. We just do what we can from my service to help folk realize that and work out where are the areas that they feel a prisoner in. Where do they need the release? Where do they need the freedom?
And I think, like Noel Fellowes realized, he can't get out of prison. He can't. He can jump up and down and shout, "I'm innocent," but until he could prove that, he was stuck there. And whilst he was stuck there over time, lots of bitterness, lots of anger, but eventually accepting, well, I am here. What can I do while I'm here? And the whole book is his story of that sort of point onwards, especially. But I just thought about that, how we can feel trapped, like you said, about the circumstances. We can't affect the fact that, we were born with a hand that doesn't work properly, or that we were born with an inability to process emotions well. That those things are not within our control, but there are things that are within our control. And I guess that's what you're saying, isn't it? That's where you can step in and help someone have that moment of peace and calm. I think last time I used the example of bubbles in the water. If you fall in the water, the bubbles can be everywhere. If you're calm enough for long enough, you can see which way the bubbles go. They go up. But you can get very confused which way's up, because you're in water and you can be stressed. And that's where that moment of calm and peace, and which way the bubbles going up. Okay, they're going upwards. Okay, that's the direction of travel, and then you can do something about it. And I guess that is, again, is what you're doing, isn't it? You're helping people, to holding their hand, I suppose, in one sense, saying that's up, just to give them some sense of what's the word? There's a word for it, up and down and all that. Which way's up?
Direction, but I'm not sure.
Thank you. That one, yeah. But that's what you're doing, isn't it? It's saying, look, here's up. Here's a standard. Gravity down, up, fine. Okay, now we've got a vertical line that we've got something to measure against.
Yeah.
Okay, how can we help you measure best against what is something you cannot change?
Yeah. it's so hard to accept that you can't change other things. You really do. I mean, that's my cup. Actually, I've got my other cup. It's God grant me the serenity, or the courage to change things I can, the wisdom, that's the wisdom to know the difference, serenity to change, to accept the things I can't, and then the wisdom to know what I can change and what I can't change. So that's such a powerful thing. And we want to be able to fight for things, which I think is great. I think we have been given that roar within us for justice and things like that. But there's also a time where you just think, you can't. You've just got to let that go. You've got to let that sense of wanting to, we all want to make life as good as possible, and that's right. And there's sometimes we just have to accept that these are the circumstances and find our peace within that.
I think it is that the idea of the serenity of the peace. There are some things we can't change, and we have to choose the battles that we can fight. Sometimes we can get into a place that I'm going to fight everything because everybody's wrong, and we get all stressed and anxious. But actually, there's also a place of, okay, well, what can I actually deal with? What can I process today? What can I actually physically alter? Rather than trying to fix everything, which is impossible. Let's take one thing that we can do well rather than trying to fix 30 things, some of which maybe aren't even a real issue.
Yeah.
I've had lots of thoughts today. Right. So we've touched again on Moving House. We've looked at Noel Fellowes. The book is Killing Time, by the way, if you want to Google that, want to find that. It's a good book. Fellowes, Killing Time is the book. Interesting of a story of a guy who was convicted and then turned his life around amazingly with Jesus. But we've also looked at other stuff around sensory health and being a prisoner as opposed to being in prison, because it's a mindset thing, isn't it? Is that sort of along the lines of Alcoholics Anonymous kind of came to mind? You need to know that you need to change. No one can change you. You need to be willing to be changed. Is it that sort of a thing?
Yeah, I suppose I don't know Alcoholics Anonymous enough. So, but what you said, absolutely, and that is the shift that we can help people make. It's to make sure that they know that they are the ones. No one else is going to be able to fix all of that stuff for them. The best thing for sure is their own perception of what is going on and their own perception of who they are. And also, it's not their fault, and it's not they're not bad for this stuff happening. And there's an awful lot of stuff that people take on, thinking, and mums thinking, oh, if I'd have, should I have done something different in pregnancy? And then you get into blame games about, oh, what about their birth, and all of that stuff really isn't helpful. It really isn't for finding peace. There is a place for justice where that's okay, but that ultimately still will not give you fundamentally the peace that you need to really be calm and content. Going back to the whole sensory health thing, calm, content, coordinated and confident, but it's just finding that being able to settle and finding joy. I was just at a conference this weekend, actually, just called Finding Joy, and pretty horrific circumstances again of what people are going through. And I think every one of us has something, at least one thing that we would not choose to have happened to us, but we're completely and utterly powerless about it. And it's how you find joy in that.
Wow, there's a way to finish. Yes, how can you find joy in your situation in spite of your situation? There's always joy. I'm always saying to people, what can you be thankful for today? There's always something to be thankful for. There's always something that we can have joy in or joy about. Sometimes we have to just take a pause and actually look for it when life is a little bit chaotic and crazy, a bit like the bubbles in the water. But yeah, find joy. That's a good one. If you want to know more about Anne Laure Jackson, how she can help you in your life with your sensory health, whether you are looking after a church, or you've got a restaurant, a school, whether you are a family with children, or even a family who've got grandparents living with you, Anne might be able to help you with some of the sensory struggles in your life. To do that, go to pure247radio.org. pure247radio.org/ALJ. And if you've got any questions or hot topics about sensory health, you can send them to us here at the studio and we'll put them to Anne. Thank you, Anne.
That's great. Good to see you again.
How can we find joy in our situation? There's a good one. Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye, Ben.